Welcome to Bold Talks series where creativity, leadership, ideas, innovation come together. My name is Epi Ludvik, and today I have the privilege to have a short one-on-one conversation with Dawn Bebe, co-CEO and founder of Crowdfunder UK. Dawn, great seeing you. Welcome to our Bold Talks series. How are you?
Hello. Really nice to be here. I'm very well, thank you. Hope you're good too.
Yeah. It's getting through the summer. I'm in Europe now. Yesterday was over 40 Celsius.
Oh my word. Wow. It's a bit cooler here in Cornwall in the UK, which is quite
Okay.
pleasant.
Yeah. Well, great to have you here, Don. I was looking forward to this. With the journey of a crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, it's been for me about 12 years. So we got a lot of things that we covered in the crowdfunding. We'd like to hear from your side. So let's first begin with your career uh, when you're shaping your iconic media brands like Red and Grazia. And now you lead one of the most impactful crowdfunding platforms in UK. What was that first moment you realized your creative instincts and could translate from glossy pages to grassroots power as a crowdfunding break?
Yeah, so I started life out as a journalist. And I in particular liked magazines, women's magazines. And the reason I liked them was because I felt that magazines at the time operated like a community. They were a community of interest where women would read the magazines and talk to each other about issues they thought were important. And it also gave them new ideas and raised their horizons and so on. And that was something that I really enjoyed about my career. And I started out on a magazine called Just 17, which was a teenage magazine, very famous in its day. And then I moved through magazines like New Woman magazine, Red magazine, and then was in charge of a portfolio, including magazines like Elle, which is a sort of obviously a very important European magazine. And really, as the sort of media landscape evolved, it became obvious that digital was going to be, the next big play. And there was in media, it was how you innovated on the digital landscape that really caught my eye. And I got asked to move into a sort of new product development role. And it became really obvious to me that digital, but in particular websites and platforms that sort of focused around community, might be something really important. And so um, after a while, I met some entrepreneurs. They were working with River Cottage, which is a Hugh Fearnley Whittingstall brand. And we started sort of working together and throwing some ideas around. And very quickly, we saw across the water in the US, we saw this thing called crowdfunding. And there were platforms like Kickstarter had just started. And there was some interesting things happening. And we thought, that's very interesting. What would the British flavor of crowdfunding be? How would it be if it was a British crowdfunding platform? And so we set up a small prototype, and immediately people saw what it was and what it did. They just loved it. They were like, this is so cool. This is awesome. And we realized really quickly that as the platform started to grow and evolve, the one thing that connected all the ideas that were raising money on our platform are ideas that brought the community together to back great ideas that they wanted to see happen. And we thought that that was really interesting. And the more ideas funded and got the money they need to make their ideas a reality, the more other projects would pop up and say, "Oh, hey, that looks brilliant. I'd like to have a go at that." And so it really grew from there, and became. I mean, it is very similar in mechanic to the way other platforms like, say, Kickstarter work. But actually, the type of projects that work with us is quite distinct and different. And so we work with a broad spectrum of projects, but mainly charities, social enterprise, individuals, and we do work with businesses as well. So we work with a broad spectrum, but the common thing is the community coming together to get behind those ideas.
Yeah,
So really the link has always been this sort of community as a force for good kind of thing.
yeah. And when I look at crowdfunding, it's like it's a community with a wallet, you know, uh, because a like just with a digital like, there's one, but there's a like with a wallet makes a really big difference. that there's a really shows there is something in there that someone has even took their time to take their credit card and to put the information. There's meaningful. There's some meaning behind it.
That's
Um,
such a good point. And I think what we describe it as, it's validation, because actually what could be a more positive vote of confidence than somebody not just saying, "Oh yeah, that's great," but actually putting some money behind your idea. And that's fantastic validation for your idea. It's saying this is a really good idea. And then to the other point you raised, what we've actually found over time is that people, they do have their wallets and they do have their bag of money. And actually, the money that they give to charity is different from the money that they give to a great crowdfunding project in their community. So they actually, our research has shown that people don't take money from their, what they call their charity bag of cash. They actually take the money from a different part of their budget, and they just want to see something great happen in their community. So it's a slightly different dynamic.
mhm. Yeah, yeah, I can imagine. What's your take? I mean, you and I, we started in the early days of a crowdsourcing crowdfunding. What is your take in terms of where is crowdfunding right now as a as a idea, as a concept where people can think? Do you think we have reached a certain maturity, or there's a lot more room for growth in terms of the how crowdfunding can be applicable in so many different ways?
Yeah, so I think it is really interesting because 12 years ago, crowdfunding probably seemed like quite a niche activity. And so if you wanted some money to start a business or a new charity, you put your best suit or dress on and you go to the bank manager, wouldn't you? Nowadays, you'd struggle to find a bank manager. So these days, people often turn to crowdfunding first to test and validate their idea. And people often think it's one of the first ways that they can raise money to get to the stage they want to get to. So I think it's no longer a niche activity. It's become a lot more mainstream. So I think that's definitely our experience of the way people react and behave now. I think the other thing is going to meetings and going to events in London and Europe. It used to be you turned up an event and you said, "Oh, yes, I work for a crowdfunding platform." And they'd say, "A what?" And now you walk in and they say, "Oh, wow, crowdfunding, amazing. We love what you do. It's really cool." So I think it's reached a real kind of tipping point in the sense that it really is part of the funding ecosystem, and it's seen as a really credible way of getting money together, especially for newer ideas or smaller ideas.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned about banks. I remember with Crowdsourcing Week, we used to host a this European conference in Brussels, and this was at the HQ of BNP Paribas. And I remember I pulled out for the first time. I pulled out the one slide, and then it said a bank is a place where it can lend you money if you can prove it that you don't need it. And all the executives, they were looking at each other, they were all nodding to each other, which is so true. And that's, I think, the power of crowdfunding is because, bypassing this, like you said, like, put on a best suit and trying to meet the manager. And now even you don't even meet the manager. It has become such a difficult proposition that unless you really have something to prove that you can pay. I mean, let's not even think about they'll fund the projects that they don't have some tangible or some collateral. I'm just, forget it. But the idea is like now is like, where do we go? And I think crowdfunding has become such a great mechanism, and I truly believe that on a community level, it's like there's just so much potential. But do you think, because you have this background from a media side, right? And do
Mhm.
you think that there is a more media amplification of the projects? It can truly unleash the potential of crowdfunding?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, good crowdfunding is all about storytelling. It's about, I need this money, and this is because I want to do this thing, and this is the impact I'm going to have. This is the change I want to see in the world as a result of this thing that I'm doing. And so if you're really good at storytelling and you're able to explain and shout quite loudly actually as well about what it is you're wanting to do, often people will see that and say, that is great. That's amazing. I didn't know there was somebody who wanted to do that. Yes, I'll put some money behind it. And it's interesting because we just launched in the USA a few weeks ago. And
Oh,
we've been talking to lots of different
congratulations.
project owners in the USA. In particular, I've been talking to people in California. And often they say to me that we're working this really great community project, but nobody in LA knows we're doing it. It's like we're really frustrated because we're doing all this great stuff, but nobody's aware of it. And the media won't write about us particularly because they will want bad news stories, not good news stories. And so actually crowdfunding is a really great way of advocating for your idea, making people aware of it, and actually unlocking funding and support that you just wouldn't be able to get in other ways. And often we see people, especially people like boomers who are sitting on, they've paid their mortgage off, they're sitting on quite a comfortable lifestyle. They've got money in the bank and they're thinking, what shall I do with this money to give something back to my community, to give back to society? And then they see something fantastic happening, like, I don't know, a dementia cafe or, some amazing, community farm. And they think, well, would I rather have this money in the bank or see that dementia cafe really thrive or see that kids nursery really, get their act together and do something brilliant? And I think it is a really great way of unlocking support and giving the community, a perspective, a way to look at these great things that people are doing in the community. So that's the sort of thing that kind of excites me about its
Yeah.
potential.
I just wish like the city funds, they operate the same thing, like crowdfunding for community works. Now, Dawn, Crowdfunder works at the intersection of digital innovation, hyper-local issues, big systematic challenges. What is one campaign or project that completely surprised you, or maybe even shifted your view on what's possible?
Yeah, I mean, there's been a few things. One of the biggest things we did was in the UK, we have our biggest festival is called Glastonbury. Do you know Glastonbury? Um, Glastonbury Festival. So it's a massive music festival, very, very famous. And we've been trying to work with Glastonbury, and they, it had taken a while. And anyway, there was the big earthquake in Turkey and Syria. And Glastonbury, the organisers, got in touch with us and said, we'd really like to make something happen. And so they got together with Oxfam, War Child, and the Red Cross. And we ran a really big crowdfunding campaign. It was actually a prize draw, which is a slight twist on crowdfunding. And it very quickly raised £1.2 million to help, people pull their lives together after the earthquake. So that was one of our biggest ones. And we were just like blown away by the support for something like that. And the way that, different organizations, if they came together and combined forces with the crowd, they could make something really big happen. So that was really exciting. And then the other one that was huge and was a lovely story was a girl called Natalie who ran a small stables in London for disabled kids. And it was a way of connecting the kids with nature and with ponies. And it was a lovely, lovely, almost like a therapy center. And she was facing closure. The building was about to be repossessed. And she got in touch with us and said, I've got 2 weeks and I need to raise £1 million to buy the building. And we were like, oh my God. Anyway, everyone pulled together and Natalie was brilliant. She was like a pocket rocket. She got some celebrities involved. She got BBC TV involved. And very quickly, she'd raised over £1 million and was able to keep the stables. And that was just an astonishing story of what one individual can do when they have just a brilliant story and something really worthwhile they're doing. So that's a couple of quite different examples of ways that, things that have kind of surprised us, but really excited us.
This is great. You mentioned you guys went to US as well. So is it called this Crowdfunder USA, or how is it called now?
Yeah, so it's called crowdfunder.com.
Okay.
So if you go to crowdfunder.com, you'll see it's much more of like an American version.
Okay.
And it's a very simple site. It's simply for crowdfunding. There's nothing else really on it that you can do. But we're seeing massive interest. The numbers are quite astonishing. It's very early days, but we're seeing a lot of interest. And it's just very interesting for us to hear what Americans think of what we're doing.
Yeah.
Um,
And what was the choice, or what was the choice that you made to go to US?
Yeah, so that was a really interesting story. We changed onto a different digital platform, onto Google Looker, which enabled us to look at our data a different way, and we were able to see that many projects were getting pledges of funding from the US. So people were already pledging on UK projects. And then one project called Friends of the Elm Tree Pub, it was a little sleepy pub in Dorset. They created a TikTok video, which was all about Gen Z, uh, sort of trying to save the pub for the baby boomers. Anyway, this video went viral, went over to the US. And we were astonished to see lots of people from the US pledge money in support of this little pub in the UK. And they pledged to the tune of about £50,000. And we were just amazed. And so we kind of realized that actually people in the US were quite receptive to supporting community entities, community projects. And so it made us look at the US more seriously. And seeing the way things are going in the US, we kind of thought there must be a lot of people in the US doing really good stuff. And at the moment, they must feel a bit frustrated because a lot of federal funding's been cut, on all sorts of different sectors like arts and community and so on. And we thought, well, maybe this is the moment that we should go over there and say, hey, what about crowdfunding for some of these great things that are happening? And so far, the answer has been very definitely yes. Americans totally get it. They're like, oh my God, this is a great idea. Yes, totally get this. And I want to get involved. So we've been really positively received. It's been really brilliant, actually. Met some amazing people.
Great move. So, Don, I remember I was presenting one time in Berlin about crowdfunding, and one of the guys in the audience had a question for me and said, like, this could be a huge scam. And then I answered him that it can be a scam, but it can never be bigger than Bernie Madoff's scam. That was a time when Bernie Madoff was in the news, right? And the reason why I really love about the crowdsourced crowdfunding uh, um, concept is because there's a core DNA is the transparency. You cannot really go way too far, trying to hide things. It will come out. So the DNA is like a transparency, right? So when you look ahead, what scares you the most or excites you the most about the future of crowdfunding, especially when it comes to solving the biggest challenges of our time?
Yeah, well, to address your point about fraud, first of all, the biggest thing that excites me is the possibility of AI for detecting fraud. So already our fraud controls are pretty high because, first of all, the very act of crowdfunding, the first people that support you are your friends and family, and they validate you as a person, and that's a really good way of fraud control. But also in our systems, there's lots of checks and balances and so on. And over time, we're introducing more and more checks and balances. And in particular, AI represents a great opportunity for detecting fraud. And we're working with payment processors to really ramp that up. So in a way, that's a really good opportunity. But I think looking forward, I think the opportunity for crowdfunding is pretty massive as more and more people realize that it's a valid way of raising funds. And also, things like AI could help them crowdfund more effectively and better. So, on Crowdfunder, you can use AI to help you write your story better. You can use it to create a better video, for example. But you can also use tools and platforms to make sure that your marketing outreach is better. So at the very beginning of Crowdfunder 12 years ago, people would literally have to have a go at writing their project page, maybe record something with their iPhone for a video, and then, go up and down the street and ask people they knew for money. And it was quite small, if you like. Whereas now the possibility to do outreach and do targeted outreach to the right people who might support you is a lot greater. And I think the opportunity is still massive. The other opportunity actually is that increasingly we're seeing corporates, brands, and other organizations seeing crowdfunding as a great thing to engage with to help make ideas that they think are important happen. So looking at crowdfunding through a CSR lens and seeing it. So if they normally do sort of charitable giving, they can actually give Crowdfunder a pot of money to give out to the right types of projects that they want to see happen. So we're seeing corporates and brands becoming part of the crowd and becoming part of that gang of people who want to put money behind great ideas. And then the great thing for them is they get that sort of public awareness that they actually helped support that project. So it's great for their brand. It's great for their brand story because they get lots of stories out of it. And it's great for visibility. People can see that corporate or that entity actually, put some money where its mouth is and actually did support, projects and people on the ground. So that's another interesting dynamic as well.
Very well said. I mean, that type of participation that brands can get, it's just incredible, amazing. Don, truly enjoying this conversation. This is a short format, Bold
Okay.
Talk series. I like to always get the perspective from every of my guests in these podcasts, and the perspective of the word bold. What does that mean to you personally?
Bold. Um, Well, when I launched Grazia, Fabrizio, who was our Italian correspondent, he worked for Berlusconi actually, and he said to me this saying, fortune favors the brave, although he said it in Italian, obviously, and I can't do that. And that really stuck with me. And I think bold means being brave and kind of going for it and not being too scared. I always say to people when we go, oh, so that's a decision, let's go for it. And I kind of say, well, how bad could things be? No, it'll probably be fine. And I think often you spend too much time in business or sort of worrying about what could go wrong and not thinking what could go right if you were brave enough to do this thing. And I'm very much my whole career, I've always been brave enough to do that thing. And I think it's worked out all right. So I'd encourage others to do the same because you can always adapt. You can always fine tune things if things go slightly wrong. It's still in your control. So be bold and see what happens.
Very well said. And that truly shows, Don, and you. I remember a friend of mine used to say, just go ahead. If as long as no one dies, everything is okay.
Exactly. Exactly. Exactly.
Don, so great to have you here. Hope you're enjoying the last days of the summer.
Thank
Uh,
you.
Looking forward to reconnect again with you. Until that time, take care, be great, and be bold always.
Definitely. Great
Bye.
to see you. Great to see you. Good luck with the podcast. See you soon.